Putin will do or say about any of this. Here now is Paul Rieckhoff, as the host of the Independent Americans podcast, co-founder of American Veterans for Ukraine. Welcome, Paul, as always.
Good to see you.
What do you think Putin's next move on all of this is? Everybody, and Rubio included, says the ball's in his court. So
right now, it looks like his next move is continuing to bomb Ukraine.
Yeah.
Because as we have this conversation, they're probably right now bombing and hitting Ukraine over and over again. So it doesn't seem like Putin wants to negotiate. We'll find out. Now the ball is in his court. He's got to respond. We'll find out what kind of concessions he's willing to make. Now, I want to underscore another factor I think gets overlooked.
Okay.
The Russians have taken 19,000 Ukrainian children. I think when we talk about this negotiation, you got to take something like that into effect. They're holding tens of thousands of Ukrainian children that they've stolen, brought into Europe, and are now holding. So those are the kind of things that are come into negotiations. In addition to just talking about land, we're actually talking about human beings and children.
It's been a terrible 3 years, especially in certain areas of Ukraine, especially in certain areas that used to be sovereign territory of Ukraine and not necessarily are, especially in the eastern part of the country now. So say Putin doesn't go for this, right? Then the ball goes back to Trump's court to some extent. You know, he said he's going to hit him with sanctions. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's obvious. I think that's long overdue. I don't know if that's going to slow down Putin, but right now, Trump's been talking about waving a magic wand and creating peace in the first couple of days. Well, that didn't happen. Now he's got to deliver. People are continuing to die. Civilians are continuing to die. NATO is unstable. And I think most importantly, he caught a lot of heat from that Zelensky meeting.
Yes.
I think he saw that Ukraine is popular in America. It might not be popular with him. It might not be popular with his part of the Republican Party. But even within the Republican Party, folks like Representative Bacon and others, there's a deep division on Ukraine. And I think Trump heard that over the last couple of weeks. And it's now pressured him to pressure Putin instead of focusing only on Zelensky.
Yeah, there was a little bit more about Putin this week. So, again, would you give the Trump administration some credit for getting to the 30 days at least? Is that a positive step in your mind?
Look, I mean, I want to reward outcomes, not activity, right? So when we finally have peace, then we can spike the ball and celebrate. But right now, for the average civilian in Ukraine, it's no different. They're still getting bombed. They don't know if they have American support. We finally turned the intelligence back on, which is good. It never should have been shut off to begin with. But there's kind of this round robin that keeps happening for the people of Ukraine, and their civilians are stuck in the middle.
There's an interesting kind of situation that develops sometimes when someone in the United States is a centrist or left of center politician, and they speak out on these issues and how they're treated, I think, versus kind of right of center politicians, military issues. I'm talking about generally speaking. But Senator Mark Kelly was over in Ukraine, and this back and forth, I'm thinking you probably have something to say about this, given your background with Elon Musk. So Kelly goes over there, says he posts on X, I just left Ukraine, and what I saw proved to me, we can't give up on the Ukrainian people, and he goes on and about what he saw. And Musk responds, "You are a traitor," to Kelly, who obviously had his own. See that at the bottom? That's Musk.
Yeah.
You're a traitor. And then Kelly said, "Yeah, Elon, if you don't understand defending freedom is a basic tenet of what makes America great and keeps us safe, well, maybe you should leave it to those of us who do." What's your thoughts?
It's disgusting. Senator Mark Kelly was actually a guest on my podcast last week. His brother, Commander Scott Kelly, is going to be my guest tomorrow. So I'm going to talk to both of these brothers.
Both former astronauts.
And fighter pilots.
Exactly.
Right? Mark Kelly is a combat Navy fighter pilot who flew combat missions over Iraq. He is an astronaut. He is also on the Armed Services Committee. It's disgusting. It's unacceptable. It's outrageous for him to call an American patriot like that a traitor and to not be held accountable. He's also a defense contractor. Can you imagine if the CEO of Raytheon or Boeing decided they were going to call a member of the Armed Services Committee who's a combat veteran a traitor? I think there needs to be Senate action. I think it's absolutely unacceptable. Trump should reprimand him and send a message that this is not acceptable on any level.
The other thing we've talked a lot to you about, I think it may have been last week, or you may have been here when the VA cuts started to come out. That was like 80,000, right? So one of our lead stories today was the Department of Education, which is big percentage-wise, 50%, but far fewer in terms of overall numbers. What's going on there? What have you been hearing from people in your community? Again, you've been a veterans advocate for so many years.
They're stacking up. It's every week. It's a couple more thousand veterans. They cut 1,300 people at the Department of Education. 1/3 of federal workers are veterans, so that's about another 450.
So it's more veterans.
450 veterans who just got a pink slip. And there's also, I think, really importantly, no transition plan. We care so much about hiring veterans, about supporting veterans. No one's standing up right now saying, you know what, you're leaving the federal government. I got a jobs program for you. I have an off-ramp for you. I think that's an opportunity for Trump to step up and actually show strategic leadership. And if he really cares about veterans, give them an option, because we're going to see homelessness go up, we're going to see mental health issues going to go up, and we're going to see the unemployment rate go up, which hit a historic low of 4.1 for veterans just last month. There's no way that's going to stay there with thousands and thousands of veteran layoffs.
Is it having a political impact yet, do you think? Because we talked earlier, for example, I put that chart up about the stock market and Trump's performance, his approval rating. But I wonder in the veteran community if it's hurting him, because that's, a lot of Trump support there.
Oh, it's hurting him with everybody. I mean, there's an old saying that we have babies, puppies, and vets. In politics, you don't mess with babies, puppies, and vets. And when you mess with vets, all Americans are outraged. And I think there's probably nothing else in America that's causing him more bipartisan political pain than laying off veterans. They are popular, they are understood, they are appreciated, they are government servants who took off their uniform and want to continue to serve in places like the VA and the Department of Defense. And this is extremely unpopular, and he's hearing about it from his constituents all around the country.
Yeah, and a lot of them, percentage-wise, voted for him. So,
yeah, it's a third rail in politics, and he and Musk especially are hitting it very hard. So you're seeing protests at VA facilities, you're seeing protests at Tesla dealerships, and I think it's only getting started.
All right, Paul, always good. Paul Rieckhoff with us here today. We'll talk about these cuts.